Speaker of the House of Representatives, Right Honorable Abbas Tajuddin, arrives at meeting room 301 of the House of Representatives to address a world press conference over critical issues in the polity.
Into this venue,
he reveals that the House is set to take steps over the unfortunate spate of insecurity in the country.
While recognizing and commending the patriotic and courageous efforts of our security agencies, we must have the courage to effect changes where necessary. These are among the issues that the forthcoming Legislative Security Summit will address. This summit, which comes up in a matter of weeks, will, among others, allow us to hear directly from the key stakeholders in the sector and come up with legislative measures to modernize our security system and improve its operational efficiency and effectiveness.
Mr. Abbas also laments the current economic hardship being experienced by Nigerians.
We are aware of the economic challenges facing our constituents across Nigeria. Of particular concern to the House is the high inflation rates, particularly the rate of food inflation. As you are all aware, various factors, including insecurity, economic downtowns, and climate change-induced disruptions, have exacerbated this crisis. I wish to commend the rapid and decisive response of the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, to the issue of food security. The 2023 supplementary budget provided a 200 billion naira palliative package, mainly for grains, seeds, agricultural inputs, and equipment for farmers. This momentum has been sustained in the 2024 budget, which has significantly improved the budgetary allocations to all critical sectors of the economy.
After the briefing, the Speaker then takes questions from journalists. He assures Nigerians that the Parliament will leave no stone unturned to change the fortunes of the country.
I'm sure my honorable colleagues and every meaning Nigerian will tell you that there is no better time for the Nigerian Parliament to come out and speak the minds of Nigerians, to respond to their anger, to their agony, to their pains. There is no better time. That's why we're here. We are not here to take care of ourselves. We are here to represent our people. And at this time, at this era, with the kind of hardship Nigerians are facing, it becomes obvious and expedient on us to call for this briefing and to tell the world that we are concerned. We feel their pains, we hear their problems, and we will not relent in coming out to solutions that will ameliorate all their sufferings.
The House of Representatives is also pledging to work with the executive arm of government to ensure that Nigerians get the dividends of democracy sooner than later. Dili Omoyeni, Channels Television News.
All right, so that is what we're going to be talking about this morning, the cost of living and all what is being said and done about it, as a matter of fact. So we've got Mr. Femi Falana, who is a senior advocate of Nigeria. He joins us virtually this morning to shed light on a certain court's decision, which he actually went to court for. So good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us on the program here today.
Good morning, Chamberlain.
Well, you did go to court, and so the Federal High Court in Lagos ordered the federal government to fix prices of petroleum product, goods, and so I think goods as well, for within 7 days. And that got people wondering, okay, how is this going to play out? So could you shed some light on this matter? Give us a background. First, many wonder if this is actually practicable, considering the fact that we've got the PIA for the petroleum sector. We're talking about a deregulated economy. So can they still fix prices, or what does the court mean when that was handed down?
Well, thank you very much, Chamberlain. In the first place, we filed the case in in June last year, when the situation in the country was substantially under control. But things have gone haywire, and the judgment of the court could not have come at a more opportune time than now. Now that the masses of our people, majority of our people, can no longer afford the cost of living, they cannot afford to buy food items, medicine, and other essential goods. And so what the court is saying is that there is a law in Nigeria called the Price Control Act. It was that law that we took to court. So we dusted it off, as it were, to have to draw the attention of the government to its basic responsibility to intervene decisively by controlling prices in our country. I didn't make the law. And I'm sure that the court in its wisdom decided to uphold our submissions. And what is the difficulty? When you say the economy is deregulated, deregulated for who? We are running a peripheral capitalist system. It's not a capitalist system. Hence, the government gives out, the government grants duty waivers running to trillions of
All right, so we seem to have lost that connection, but the point which he's trying to make there is they had to dust that law out and see. But Mr. Falana, I mean, yeah, but you respond, you continue your response, but okay, go ahead. I think we've got it.
I'm saying the government grants duty waivers running to trillions of naira to business people or the business community to bring in goods to the country. If you gain billions of naira or trillions of naira through duty waivers, the government can simply not allow you, the government should not allow you to fix any price you like. Today, the pump price of petrol, PMS, is fixed by the NNPCL. If that had not been done, by today, the pump price will have gone to about 1,500 naira because it's $1 per liter. Because they said they were internationalizing the pump price of fuel. Now, where can the same government not direct the NNPCL to also control, fix the price of diesel and kerosene? Is the Nigeria Customs Service that fixes duties. The Nigeria Customs Service fixes duties for imports. As far as we are concerned, the government has a duty to direct customs to reduce the skyrocketing prices of, skyrocketing duties imposed on imports. Now, when you consider the fact that this government has refused to allow the electricity companies to increase their tariffs, telecommunication companies to increase call rates, the government is being urged to extend the control to other areas of the economy so that the poor can live a decent life in the country, or to use the phrase credited to the Senate President, Senator Akpabio, that the regime must let the poor breathe And that is the essence of the case.
So, Falana, well, some of the members in the lawmakers that we spoke with actually thought that that law should have been, expunged because they thought that it conflicts with the PIA when it comes to the oil and gas sector. Because they thought since the PIA came to fruition, there was no point, and this will be very difficult to implement.
The case goes beyond petroleum products. But what is important, if the National Assembly members are now saying, oh, we made a mistake, we haven't repeated the law, that is an admission that law has to be enforced. There is also the Federal Consumer Protection Act enacted by them a few years ago to defend that there shall be a commission to ensure that consumers are not exploited in Nigeria. That body also performs similar functions. And the members of the National Assembly will have to realize that under the Constitution, which has not been amended or even repealed, the government has a duty to protect the people, particularly the masses. And that is why it is stated in Section 16 of the Constitution that the national economy shall be controlled, shall be managed in such a way by the government to promote the happiness of our people and ensure, the government shall ensure that the commonwealth, the natural resources of our country, the wealth of our country are not concentrated in the hands of a few. So if you run a government with the support of the National Assembly, giving duty waivers to people, to business people, a selected few, to import goods to Nigeria, and not allowed to pay duties, or business people who are giving tax reliefs, the government has a duty to say, whereas we have given you duty waivers, whereas we're giving you tax relief, you must now operate in a manner that we can control the goods you have imported into the country. That is what we're saying. And the National Assembly member will have to look at it. And if they want to repeat the law, they must conduct a public hearing so that members of the public can make their contribution.
But do you think this law is enforceable?
But I have just told you that the government fixes the pump price of PMS. We are saying NNPC
says always, look, we're a private company now, so that is out of our control. And now,
if it is
yes,
if the NNPC is a limited liability company, which it is,
I think you need to unmute.
It is a federation company. That company belongs to the government of the country. And that is why it is still being run like a parastatal. If it is a private liability company, the MD has no business running to the villa to hold meetings and consultations with the president. Because it is a federation company, it has to protect the interests of the Nigerian people. And that is why the NNPC fixes the pump price of petrol. We are saying you must also do the same for diesel and kerosene, because we do not have access to electricity in our country. The energy sector is in crisis, and that is why most Nigerians run their businesses on generators. And so the government cannot pretend, oh, we are running a free market system, therefore we're not going to get involved. The market has to be controlled by the government, and you have just seen that in their claim.
So does this apply to this law, this ruling? Does it apply to federal government and state governments as well? All right, I was asking, does it apply to federal governments and state governments too? If you can just unmute so we can hear you. I'm asking if this ruling applies to just the federal government, or will the state governments be bound by the same judgments? Okay, I'm not sure Mr. Falana can hear us at the moment.
Mr. Falana, can you hear us?
Okay, so we'll try and sort that out in a bit. But yeah, we do get the point. Mr. Falana, can you still hear us now? Okay, but you're muted, so you need to unmute so we can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So will the state government be required to do anything, or this applies strictly to the federal government?
No, the state governments, in fact, have a greater responsibility. Whereas under the Constitution, the only body recognized to advise the president on the management of the economy is the Nigerian National Economic Council. That body, which is chaired by the vice president, is constituted by the 36 state governors, the governor of the central bank, and the minister of finance. That body is required from time to time to advise the president on the management of the Nigerian economy, but with profound respect, because that body has abdicated its responsibility, constitutional responsibility. The IMF and the World Bank now advise the governments of Nigeria on how to underdevelop our country and destroy the economy. I'm therefore saying, again, secondly, since fuel subsidy was removed, there's not a single month that the three tiers of government have not gained 500 billion naira. Whereas in April last year, April 2023, the amount shared by the three tiers of government, the federal government, the state government, and local government, was 655 billion naira. Since then, according to the Minister of Finance, Mr. Wale Edun, since fuel subsidy was removed, the three tiers of government have been sharing not less than 1 trillion per month. In fact, in June last year, the amount shared, or the amount to be shared, was 1.9 trillion naira. In December last year, the amount shared was 1.7 trillion naira. So if the three tiers of government have gained maximally from the removal of fuel subsidy, they owe it a duty, not the federal government alone. The three tiers of government owe it a duty to go back to the people. Yeah.
Mr. Falana, one of the issues that I wanted to discuss with you is about the engagements, because I'm hearing you talk about a lot of these councils. There's a committee that has been set up to take a look at the rising cost of living and, of course, food shortages and everything. What do you make of these engagements? Do you think that they're going to help us get the kind of results that the Nigerian people are, as you have talked about, desiring a better standard of living? Do you think these engagements are going to do that for the people?
No, if you don't struggle, you are not going to win. Unless you guys in the media can help and make information available to our people. What are the benefits of the removal of fuel subsidy? If, as I'm saying, the governments have been sharing over 1 trillion per month, it does not reflect in the living standards of our people. And for me, I think there's been so much attention on the federal government. We just said from the National Assembly, both chambers, what of the houses of assembly of the states? What of the local governments? What are you giving back to the people from the money you are gaining from the removal of fuel subsidy? And at the end of the day, I am convinced, beyond any shadow of doubt, but the way Nigerians are going, the government is going to be forced to review the removal of fuel subsidy. The government is going to be forced to review the dollarization of the economy. And once you can do that, in the interest of our people, and you ward off the undue pressure of the IMF and World Bank, and you discuss, you engage with the people, with labor, with the youths, with women, and other vital segments of the society, then we can begin to talk of a country, a sovereign state that is prepared to address the problems confronting its people. But right now, through the religious implementation of neoliberal programs and policies, there is no way you can combat poverty. We must go back to the drawing table and discard the deleterious solutions of the IMF and World Bank. Just 2 weeks ago, the IMF was telling the British government that, hey, you are not in come to Africa. They say you are spending so much on health, on education, on transportation. I think these are the issues. Let the government take control. Of the economy in the interest of people. Unless the government is prepared to do this, there's no end in sight to the crisis that is already on the street.
Mr. Falana, you know, it is remarkable. I don't think anyone would ever have seen this coming. The fact that this kind of matter, this economic matter, could be something that can be addressed through the courts. You have chosen to go to the courts to get a judgment, you know, which is now forcing the hand of the federal government to fix prices. But some people will say we've been there before in this country where government fixed prices. And what we had was a situation where there was hoarding and there was monopoly, and it had the contrary effect of what government had intended in the first instance. So how do you think, I mean, this is something, if this is something that we've practiced, because the laws which you have dug up now are Nigerian laws, even though some people are saying they're old laws, but they're Nigerian laws. How do you think, going from the experience we had in the past, going from recent experience we've had with fuel subsidy, which government intended at a certain price, but the realities on the ground were not tallying with that, how do you think this enforcement, or this order which you're seeking, is going to work, knowing that government has had no input in terms of how these products have either been produced or brought into the country?
Malcolm, that will no longer be correct. If we're running a capitalist system that emphasizes production, you can say, oh, anybody who produces goods can sell at the rate determined by him or her. But in our own case, because the ruling class, members of the ruling class have granted the country, we are now compelled to import virtually all items, including toothpick, chairs, whatever. The government has a duty to impose duties. The customs has a duty, mobilized by the government, to impose duties that will not make those imports too expensive in town. 2, the government has a duty to ensure that the electricity companies do not charge tariffs, because the government is also subsidizing those discos. Furthermore, the government has a duty to ask NNPCL, you have fixed the price of PMS, please extend it to diesel and kerosene, at least for now, until the economy improves. But we can't just say, oh, and by the way, Malcolm, what monopoly are you talking about? What monopoly? When the borders were closed, when President Buhari closed the borders for over a year, 2 companies were allowed to move in and out of the country. Clear did not affect them. 2, today. In the last 5 years, a few companies were granted duty waivers to the tune of 16 trillion naira. So how can you tell me that there's no monopoly in our country? There was no monopoly. This is the...
Oh dear, it looks like we're losing you a bit.
The kind of monopoly being operated in Nigeria is totally against the basic tenets of capitalism.
Okay, so whilst, those companies, while we're looking at those companies which you have now, highlighted that they've received waivers, but we also know that there are lots of other companies that are going out there, to also bring in products. Some of them even small companies, some of them owned by just one individual or run by one individual, as the case might be. I'm looking at the array of products now which the court order affects, and it affects the prices of bicycles, spare parts, flour, matches, milk, motorcycles, sugar, salt, and petroleum products. Now let's take a look at the things that people can eat: flour, sugar, salt, and these other products that we know that some of them are produced right here in Nigeria. How do you then, because you've talked about how if it was about production, some of them are produced right here. How is this order going to be enforceable on some of these items which are also included in the court order?
But those ones that are produced there, the same government has sort of opened the borders to allow others to be brought in. And so we have a crisis in the market. Instead of encouraging local production, we are bringing all manners of goods, including the areas you have mentioned. And because of the superiority of some of the products from abroad, the local industries are in trouble. Take, for instance, the previous regime, the Buhari administration, placed a ban on access to forex market in respect of about 43 items. This government has lifted the restriction. So those goods that are produced in Nigeria have to compete with goods that are brought in from Ghana, from Togo, from England, from China, and everywhere. And so we have a problem. And that is why the government, which controls the goods that are coming from abroad, the government has a duty. We don't produce bicycles here. We don't produce vehicles here. The government will have to sit down. Because of the crisis in the economy, and we as the Nigeria Customs Service to reduce the import duties. And that is how to control the prices. That is how to control the price.
Mr. Falana, I cannot fault your argument on, how it is that you're suggesting that government controls the prices, especially of items that are imported into Nigeria, and how it is. But some people will say that this particular idea, can be another ideological, it can become an ideological argument. But I don't want to dwell, I don't want to dwell on that. I want to dwell on the practicality, of what it is that we're asking for, the protection of, producers back home. Now, there's one question. It keeps coming and it's going in my mind right now. I'm trying my best to get a hold of it. But maybe I'll let Ayo come in. When that question comes back, I will take you up on it. Thank you.
Well, interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Falana, first of all, let me begin by asking you this. You have identified that Nigeria has an open market economic system. And so are you asking for an adjustment? Because the closed market system is one with a prohibitive number of regulations that constrains free market activity. Is it in any way likely to affect Nigeria's open market economic system, this enforcement, this judgment of the court that you have gotten?
Well, Ayo, the point I'm making is that the government is required by the Constitution to run an economy that will not allow the concentration of the wealth of our country in the hands of a few. If you follow the constitutional provision very well, nobody will be given an oil block. If you take the oil resources in my backyard, you can't give oil blocks to individuals who, without contributing a dime, will simply hawk the license and become an instant...
That point is noted, but if I don't know if you can just... Is it likely? Because that's what some people will be telling you right now, that this order of the court will adjust, alter the open market economic policy of Nigeria. Don't you think so?
Yes, Ayo. There is no provision for open market system in the Constitution unless they are going to amend it tomorrow. I have just referred you to Section 16, which you can Google. You can Google right away. It says the economy of Nigeria shall be operated in such a manner as to promote the happiness of our people, and the wealth of Nigeria shall not, Ayo, shall not be concentrated in the hands of a few people. That means the government must regulate. The government must regulate the economy in a way that the wealth of our country is not concentrated in the hands of a group. That is the law. I didn't write the law. If the National Assembly members now decide tomorrow to convert Nigeria into a capitalist state, then we're not going to depend on rents and royalties. We should be talking about production. And when we have produced enough food, enough goods for our country, then we can review those laws. But for now, the government has a duty to come in to assist the poor, to be able to buy medicine when they are sick, to be able to buy food items, to be able to send their children to school.
Is that the situation that
went to court?
Is this what we're currently contending with, Mr. Falana? Is that what the problem is today? Because some people will say that the problems that Nigeria is facing today is confronting both the rich and the poor. Both the rich and the poor are feeling the pinch, aren't they?
No. The rich, the extremely rich, are not feeling the pain. The poor are feeling pain. The rich are poor, but I'm talking of the rich who are still giving duty waivers when they import goods to the country. Some of them, the government even goes to the bank to take a loan to help them to fund their companies. So when they set up such companies, you cannot just fold your arms as a government. If I want to set up a company in Lagos, you say, oh, Mr. Falana, come to the free trade zone. You are not going to buy land there. We'll give you land free of charge. Whatever you are bringing, you are not going to pay tax there. Whatever you are bringing into the country, Mr. Falana, you will not pay duties because you are contributing to the economy. The government has a duty to say, hey, Mr. Falana, we have given you all these facilities. You must allow us to intervene in the prices you are fixing. Otherwise, you enjoy monopoly to the detriment of the people. That is what the law is about.
Okay, so that argument again, I cannot fault. But let me quickly take you up on a question which I remembered, and it's the fact that, you know, when this long debate was going on about subsidy removal, everyone knew that, you know, this was going to come with some pain. Everyone knew that this was going to come, just a moment, sir. Everyone knew that this was going to come with some difficulty. And that's one of the reasons why Labour resisted very stiffly the removal of subsidy. This argument has been going on even before 2012, Mr. Falana. So if now, where we are now in, you know, where we're deep down on our knees, where we had nowhere to go, and it was seen that subsidy had to go to at least give government a leeway to get more resources into its hands. Would you say that we have really given it time? Because it's not even yet a year since subsidy was taken off for us to say that, oh, it's not working. This is not what was intended. We're not yet seeing the benefits of it. Isn't this too short a time for us to reach those kinds of conclusions?
No, Malcolm. The argument of those who were opposed to subsidy removal is that there is no country in the world, none, that does not subsidize one product or the other for the people, including the leading capitalist countries in the world. President Biden has just cancelled the loans taken by students, undergraduates, to the tune of over $1 trillion. So that's a capitalist country. And I've just reminded you that the IMF is asking Britain, invest more in education, invest more in health. In this country, when the government said we wanted to remove fuel subsidy, some of us were opposed and we told the government, no.
Indeed, but very interesting submissions that Mr. Falana has made about the current situation of, of the people. No one can debate that things are very difficult. And, the fact that he was even able to dig out these laws, price control
The law is
Act,
20 years old now. In fact, the first of that law was made in 1977. It was reviewed in 2004.
Wow, to think that those laws are in existence, it's going to be interesting to see how government responds to this, because one of the reasons why the court granted judgment in this was the fact that there was no representation on the side, there was no counter from the side of government, and so the court said all your prayers are granted as requested.
Absolutely.
So it'll be interesting to see how government responds to this, how they're able to control price. Do we still have a mechanism by which that can happen? And what the market's reaction, because whether or not we like it, there is a market right now, and what the market reaction is going to be to that. Will people be responsive to the fact that, government is trying to, alleviate the sufferings of the people and go along with it, or will there be a resistance? Will there be hoarding? These are the kinds of things that we're looking to see.
And talking about hoarding, look at what you have on your screen right now about the rising cost of living, where the federal government has directed that the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security should release 42,000 metric tons.
Yes.
But the papers this morning are talking about 102,000.
Yes, that's because also they spoke to rice millers, independent rice millers, to also release 60,000 metric tons of rice.
Beautiful.
This is supposed to have an effect on the prices. And I think it was the Kano State government that was threatening the rice millers that if you don't open your storehouses, we will come there and open it by ourselves. So it'll be interesting to see just what it is that happens in that regard, because some people have now taken it as a business. That when farmers produce, they go and buy in bulk, they hoard or they keep, as the case might be, depending on the terms you want to use.
Which goes back
and then they wait until it's no longer in the market, then they release theirs.
Exactly, which goes back to what you were saying the other time about, the role that the people themselves have to play in all of this matter, because at the end of the day, sometimes it's as we say in the local palace, we are the one doing ourselves. So
there's that part.
There's that part, but then everyone, as has been established, everyone wants to make money one way or the other.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, Chamberlain and Kayla, do we have Mr. Falana back now?
No, he's not back yet. I think
we don't.
We lost that connection.
We lost that connection.
But I mean, we hear him. It's just that there are several questions concerning that in terms of the practicability or how they're going to enforce all of that, because what he said about the petroleum sector doesn't necessarily work across board. So how will government go ahead and implement that?
I think that is the most crucial part of this, is the implementation of what. I actually want you to hear him more today. I want you to be able to get his thinking when he dug up this law and decided that this is something he wants to pursue and was able to get that court order. Just his thinking behind it, and if it's actually enforceable. That's something I want you to be able to hear from him. It's a pity that we've lost that connection to him, because I really wanted to hear how because I spoke to a few business people have been speaking up about this, saying, wait, hold on a second. I spent so and so amount to buy this, and then you want to close my business down? How am I going to?
Did you just talk about closing the business?
Well, no, they was talking about the fact that if you fix prices on something that I had to use my money to buy, and I imported it in, and then you fix a price, how do you want me to make my money back? I'm a businessman. Is the fixing of the price is going to take into cognizance the fact that I had to deal with the dollar, I had to deal with the naira, I had to deal with these, economic situations? How is that going to help my business?
There are different ways to do that, because if we had, I'm going to check if that's still there, the price control board. If that exists, there's usually a band, a limit within which you can, so people don't just go profiteer We see that in several other areas. They give you that space such that they don't kill or discourage investors or investments. They all factor that in. So how they go about this, because I don't know if enforceability will be tenable before the courts. The law is the law. If they ruled on it, I don't know. So maybe you can ask Mr. Falana. He's back now, so you can just take that on.
Mr. Falana, can you hear us, sir?
Yes, I'm back now.
Okay, we're seeing someone else. They're still trying to set him up. Can you hear us, sir?
You can see me now.
Okay, now we just talked a bit about the enforceability of this, this order that you've gotten. How do you think that it's going to be enforced in a country where we have all of these things that have happened over the years?
Well, we only talk about impracticabilities when it comes to the interests of the poor. I am saying what is important today is that virtually all goods today, majority of goods in the country consumed today are imported from abroad. So at the border, at the port, the government can do some control by reducing import duties. Everybody is complaining. To bring in a car, you pay so much. To bring in Bonvita, you pay so much. Now, let us sit down and pressurize the government to say, comply with the order of the court. Please don't help the government. Let the Attorney General of the Federation go to court. My Lord, we can comply with this order in these areas. In these areas, we're having difficulties. But don't say that a government that is controlling the prices of the core rates, electricity tariffs, the pump price of PMS cannot control the prices of kerosene, diesel, and others. So don't let's complicate the problem of the government by saying, oh, this is not feasible. The Minister of Information had just stated that our country has food in abundance. I'm not challenging that claim. How can we ensure that the masses have access to the food items in town? And that is the duty of the government. It's not difficult. If the government has the political will, if the government is willing, it is not difficult. The last one, Chamberlain, before I went off, Malcolm had asked a question about the difficulty, the pains we are going to go through. Again, this is the language of the government. What pains I have not disclosed to you, and it's your own duty now to ask the government that I have said here that since fuel subsidy was removed on May 29 last year, there is no month that the governments, the federal, state, and local government have not made 500 billion naira, not shared additional 500 billion naira.
All right, Mr. Falana.
What percentage of that is going to service the people? That is the question.
All right, we do hear you and appreciate your perspectives on the matter, and thank you very much indeed for your time here today and shedding light on the background behind that court decision. Always a pleasure to have you on. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Femi Falana, Senior Advocate of Nigeria.
A pleasure.